It's time to make our snowy owl. First things first though, we have to get all of our materials together. We have our pattern ready to go. This pattern is by Anna Marie Stone at annieunravel.blogspot.com, so thanks to Annie for that. You also want to check for the errata, which in this case is on the Ravelry page. Get that all checked out ahead of time, because if you wait until you get stuck, it just gets so frustrating. So we have our white yarn for the owl, black yarn for the beak and the feet, our polyfill, of course. I'm using Sporewit yarn, so I have an E hook. I like these with the nice big handles so my hands don't get sore. Got my scissors ready, my safety eyes. If you don't want to use safety eyes, you can embroider after we're done a needle and in this case, a Sharpie marker, because that's how our owl's going to get its coloring. So let me get myself set up and we'll start crocheting. All right, first things first, you have to start somewhere. I have the knot on my hook. The pattern says to create a ring of 6 single crochets. So when they start off that way, you can do it however you like. You can either do a chain 2 and then do your single crochets in that first chain. You can do a magic circle. You can do a ring of SCs, whatever you like. But normally I like to use this 2 chain method because I get a uniform size. And you know, habit is habit. Whatever you're used to doing is what what works best for you. Now, the drawback with this 2 chain method, as you might be able to see as I go along here, you end up with a little bit of a hole in the center because all of these stitches are going into the same chain. But that doesn't bother me once it's done. If it bothers you, do a magic circle. You know, no big deal. Now, the second round is just going to be the standard increase. So that is 2 stitches in every stitch of the previous round. Sorry, I look so awkward here. It's hard to watch the camera and my stitching at the same time. So we're going to do 2 stitches as we go around. And the third round is also a basic increase round. So that means your third stitch of that round is an increase. So your first round's going to have 6 stitches, your second round's going to have 12 stitches, and your third round is going to have 18 stitches. So I'm going to pause the camera here just for a minute or 2 while I get caught up to that point, and you don't have to watch all these agonizingly slow stitches. And I'll be back. This is how my owl looks after 4 rounds. The first round was 6, second 12, third 18, and the fourth was an even round of 18. You can see how that even round starts to make it look a little cup-shaped. So you can see that this is going to be the top of the head of our owl. The next round is a decrease round. So we're actually going to go from 18 back to 12. And the way you do that is to combine 2 stitches in one. So in this case, we want to go from 8 to 12. We're going to do 1 regular SC and then we're going to do a decrease. So we've got 1 and a decrease. You just start like you're going to do a regular SC, but instead of finishing that stitch, you start into the next one and insert your hook, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So that actually gives us 2 stitches on the current row. So this will be 3 is a regular, 4 is going to be a decrease, 5 is a regular, 6 is a decrease. 7. Whoops, well, it happens. This is stitch 8, which is a decrease. 9, 10, 11, 12. You can see how those decreases have really tightened up this bowl shape. Now, this is the point in the pattern when they say to place the eyes. So I'm going to loosen up my loop there, put that towards the back. This is now going to be my owl's face. So I'm going to use safety eyes. Just pop one in there. If you haven't used safety eyes before, it's just a plastic eye on a stick, and there's a backing. I don't know if I can grip it here where you can see it. That holds the eye in place. So I'm just going to flip it inside out so I can find that post. I'm going to put the cap on, and then I'm going to try to grip it so that it snaps on. There we go. All right, so you can see how that looks. The eyes through the fabric, the shaft is there, and then the cap is on top. I'm going to pop it down one more level there so it'll be a little bit closer. All right, so eye number 1. See, you guys think I have all this stuff magically down, but it's a challenge for me as well. All right, so eye number 1 is in place. You can decide how far apart you want your eye. 3, 4, 5. I usually go 5 or 6 stitches, and that seems to be pretty well in proportion for what we're working on right here. So let me grab this other back and get it on here and tighten it down. All right, so now as we go along and we're stuffing and doing all those things, we don't have to worry about going back to do the eyes. The next round per the pattern is another round of decreases. We're going to go from 12 stitches to 9 stitches. So in this case, we're going to do 2 regular SCs before we do a decrease. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is a decrease, 7, 8, 9 is a decrease, and it's starting to look like a little owl. Now the pattern recommends, and I agree, that you start stuffing this little owl as you go. So since we pretty much have his head done now, I'm going to fill it with polyfill. I usually get a piece bigger than I think I need. If you're doing a larger item, you can do lots of little pieces, work better than one big piece. But this little guy is so tiny, it's tough. And then I just take off what I don't need. We'll use it for the body later. All right, so that gives him a little bit of shape, and we're ready to start with the body. So this is going to be the neckline right here. So now we're going to start to do increases to give that roundness of the body shape. The next round is supposed to be 18 stitches. We have 9, so that means we're going to do an increase in every stitch. And that really just means 2 single crochet in the current row for every 1 single crochet in the row before. So I'm just going to count as we go along here. You can put a stitch marker in or use a piece of scrap or waste yarn to mark your place. Usually when it's a small number of stitches like this, I just count as I go along. So we've got 6, 8, 9, and you can see how it's starting to create that shoulder ledge already. This should be 14. And 18. And then just like we did at the beginning, now we're going to, oh, looks like I'm off one there. We're going to do 24. So we've got that for 2 rows, and then we're going to decrease again to come back to 18. So I'll be back in a couple of rows. Here we are a few rounds later. For the body, we've done a row of 18, 24, 24, 18, 18, and then 3 rounds of 12. So you know we were working from the top down in this direction, but he's starting to look pretty cute. So we're going to just, we stuff as we go, so you can tell that he's pretty well stuffed. I tend to not like to stuff them too much because then the stuffing starts to show through all the stitches, but just enough to hold his shape. And I'm going to show you how to finish off once you get to this last round and close up this bottom. So the pattern says to do decreases, and we're going to end up with this, taking this round of 12 to a round of 6. We're going to do a decrease for every 2 stitches. So we've got the first and second stitch here will be our first decrease. 1, 2. I tell you what, you get used to holding things in a certain way. And I'm having trouble holding it in such a way where you can see it in the camera. But I'm sure you all can appreciate that. And it's just good to be able to do this all together, even if it is awkward. So let's see, that should be 6. All right. Then I'm just going to do a slip stitch. Some patterns will specify to do a slip stitch and some won't. That's just where you pull that loop through everything all at once. That's my way of finishing off. And you want to leave a little length of yarn as you pull through. And that's what we're going to use to finish sewing the bottom. So now we've taken that 12 to 6, but it's still not quite closed. We're going to use this tail and a tapestry needle and finish it up a little bit by hand. To do that, I don't know if you can see that, the contrast there's a little bit weird, but I just loop back and forth between the stitches that last round. And I don't pull it completely tight, but just tight enough where I know I'm not going to have stuffing come out. My grandsons aren't going to be able to pick things out of there. But if you pull it too tight, you end up with a little bit of a ridge. And we don't want to go there. So then I just pass the needle through a few stitches to lock it down. And we have the body of our owl complete. Now on to the wings. In this particular pattern, the wings are started the same way the body was, so we're not going to go through that all, again. You start with 6 SE, you increase that to 8, and then you do as many rows at 8 single crochet as you'd like to do for the size of the wing you want. I have 5 rows here, and I think that in proportion to my owl that's probably about right. The pattern says to do 4 more SCs after your last round and to tie it off. In this case, I'm not going to do the slip stitch because the reason that they've done this the way it is when you flatten this tube, one side is just a little bit longer than the other. And this gives us just a little bit more to sew onto our owl. So the tall side will be the upper side of the wing, and the short side is going to be the lower side of the wing, and you can sew them on in any position that you like. Here we're almost done sewing the wings on. I've got one wing over here, and this one is partially sewn on. I just want to show you a couple of stitches of how I normally do it. I'm just going to hold them forward and try to, line up the 2 wings so they're roughly in the same spot. And then I just do one little quick stitch. It would be better if you could see what I'm doing. I just do one little quick stitch for each stitch that I have across the top of that wing. Then I lift the wing up, run the needle through a few stitches under there to hold it in, and there we go. Our owl has wings. The last piece we need for our snowy owl is the tail. And the instructions are probably straightforward enough now where you can figure out how to get that done, but I did want to show you one thing. The tail is worked back and forth in rows and not in the round because we want it to be flat. And I wanted to show you my favorite way of not having a loose chain as you crochet, especially if you're a beginner. You might find this helpful if your chain is a little bit loose. So we always chain 1 more than we're going to have stitches. So in this case, we're going to chain 5, and we're going to end up with 4 stitches. And it's perfectly acceptable to just start your stitches in the second chain by inserting your hook into the top loop of the chain you see with the V. But I like to flip it and use this back ridge loop. I don't know if you can see that there, but there's a line that just goes straight down the back here as opposed to the V side. And I'm going to do my single crochets in that back loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last one sometimes can be a little bit tough to do, but let me show you what that does. This is the top of the stitches that we just did. And look at our bottom chain. It looks just like the tops of our stitches. You just get those nice little V's. It's all nice and tight. There's no loose loops. I use this every time I use a foundation chain. My first row goes into those back loops for this reason. Then you don't have gaps and those kinds of things along this first row. So our pattern says 4 SC in the first row. We're going to chain 1 and turn. It gives us some turning room there. And then we're going to do 2 decreases to get down to 2 stitches. So I know it's hard to see when I've got a tiny little thing going on here. So that's our first decrease. Our second, and you can already see we're kind of going for a little triangle-ish type shape there. So we've just got the 2 rows, 1 of 4 and 1 of 2. We're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to decrease down these 2 stitches down to 1, And that gives us a nice triangular shaped tail. I'm going to finish this off if I can find my scissors here and leave enough room there for some sewing. I'll weave in my original tail in a minute, but I wanted to show you the sewing and how to figure out where to place it. And of course, my threading isn't working. So I'll be back in a second. I don't know about you, but I didn't see a thing. I saw that yarn go right on that needle. All right, so we have our triangle, we have our cute little owl, and we're going to give him his tail. So we've got wings there. That looks just about right. And I'm just going to do just really simple. Oh, this is how it goes. One stitch at a time, all the way across. You get the idea. I'll be back and we'll turn this owl into Hedwig. All right, we have a great little snowy owl here. He's got wings that we've crafted and sewn on, and he's got a nice little triangular tail that I did finally get going. Now I just want to point out something at this point for all of you people who look at all the little toys that I make and think that there aren't any mistakes. Look really closely at this one. My wings aren't straight, the tail isn't straight, it's all kind of cattywampus, and you've seen I've had mistakes that I've, stopped the tape for to fix myself. It happens to everyone. That's part of the deal. It's how it goes. But by the time we're done here and we show it to someone else, they are not going to notice. My grandsons are not going to notice the difference in these wings. Don't sweat it. It's small stuff. We're doing this for fun, and it's not worth sweating over. But here's the magic. Here's how we're going to turn this great white snowy owl, which of course would be great to leave snowy if you wanted, and turn it into a spotted owl like Hedwig. And the best way to do that, good old Sharpie marker. And then just kind of draw along the top. And you'll see how this goes. If you do it really lightly, you end up just with some spots on the top of that yarn instead of, there, that's better. Instead of actually coloring it all in, it just gives you this nice little spotted effect. So you can just go around and add some color to whatever you like. So there's a little bit on her head. I'm going to put a little bit on the top of her wings. And the end of her tail. I think I might go down her back a little bit more too. And there's the spots, just as easy as that. No color changing, no fancy footwork or anything like that. It's fantastic. Now for the beak, this is really easy. We're just going to embroider a V right here in her face. So say goodbye to the owl. We're going to set her down for just a second. While I get my next bit of yarn, let's hope this one works. Haha. All right. So we just want to kind of center it around here, and I usually use a back stitch because it will stay a little bit better. So I'm going to go into this stitch, come out that stitch, and I'm going to leave a little bit there for me to tie off and tuck in later. Go back in where we started and come over to the other side. Make a V. Come back out where this other end is. And you can see that once I have this end tied off and tucked in, it'll be perfect. So since this is going to be for my grandson, I'm going to actually tie a knot here and then use the needle to pull those ends back down through the center of the body. But, you know, if it's something that's for you, or you're not worried about them pulling it apart too much, you don't have to worry about the knots. Just put your needle right through the center of the body of the owl so that those strands are hidden inside there. And that's that. And here we are, all tied off and tucked in. Nice little beak, eyes, wings, tail. I think Hedwig is ready to go. And I think Harry approves. Bye.